Hi, I'm Ben Friedman. Welcome to the Beniverse, and today we are talking about the newest Pixar release film, Turning Red, which can be found on Disney Plus right now. But is it worth the watch? Find out here in one moment. So as I previously mentioned, we are talking Pixar's newest release film, Turning Red, which is directed by See. And she has previously worked on a multitude of Pixar films, including Inside Out, Toy Story 4, Soul, so she definitely has her feet wet within the Disney studio and more specifically Pixar. And this isn't even her first directorial debut for Pixar. She previously directed the short film Bow for Pixar, which won her an Academy Award for Best Animated Film in 2019. So she worked up to this, and this film, Turning Red, follows Mai Li, a 13-year-old Chinese-Canadian middle schooler who'll do anything to impress her mother. But her life becomes more difficult when her favorite boy band comes to town, and Mai struggles to put her own desires and wants first in fear of disappointing her mother. And the problem only becomes worse and more complicated when she discovers that she turns into a giant red panda whenever she gets emotional. And let's just start here. Let's just start with the premise of this film, because off the bat, this premise sounds overdone, especially for Disney films. You've seen it before. Whether it's The Shaggy Dog, The Princess and the Frog, Emperor's New Groove, Brother Bear, or even Brave, this film faced an uphill battle from the beginning because it struggled to feel like it had a place and wasn't going to be redundant, especially when compared to other Disney films. And what I found so impressive about this movie is that it succeeds without ever feeling redundant for the most part. For the most part, Turning Red is a delightfully sweet and funny movie. And the reason for this success is solely placed on the family dynamic crafted within Turning Red. Sandra Oh plays Mai's mother, Ming. And Ming, to me, is the MVP of this film, and I cannot underrate how good Sandra Oh is in this film. This character could have gone so wrong so quickly and just become the archetype for the mean mom who doesn't let her kids have any fun. But that's not what she is, and that's not what she becomes. Her character is far more nuanced than that. She struggles with her overbearing nature, but that stems from a love for Mai. And as the film explores Mai's growing up, it allows Ming's character to develop as she learns how to deal with a teenage daughter. And I found the two characters' story and their respective arcs, I found it emotionally resonated with me, and it worked well throughout this film. And I think what people are going to really enjoy about this film is the emotional resonance that these two characters' story and their respective arcs have. It worked well throughout the film. That is the film's largest strength. These two characters are so perfectly fleshed out that I was invested the whole time in their story arcs. And speaking of which, I found the whole family dynamic in Turning Red worked really well, and I found it compelling. I like that we got to spend time with other characters like Grandma and the aunts, who gave context to Sandra Oh's character's upbringing and explains maybe some of her more overbearing qualities and where they came from. In particular, the relationship between Mai and her father is really sweet, and it brings a lot of humor to a family dynamic that could otherwise feel very cold at times. He kind of allows for the levity, and his character allows Sandra Oh's character to also have those moments of levity throughout the film. And I like how fleshed out Turning Red decided to make these characters. It could have become really one-dimensional had it just decided to focus on the mom and daughter relationship, and all the other characters' impact in the story doesn't have as much weight to it. They decide to give us little beats throughout with either the grandma or the dad or a few of the aunts. And what that does is it allows that dynamic to feel fleshed out, and it makes the film's main conflict work. The film works because its main conflict is not centered around Mai turning into a red panda. Rather, her transformation is the catalyst that forces Mai and Ming at odds throughout this film. And admittedly, here, the giant red panda aspect of the movie was the dynamic I was most worried and apprehensive about when I first viewed this trailer. I'll be honest, when I first saw the trailer, I thought it looked pretty bad, and I thought the jokes were going to be too childish, and it was made for the youngest of audiences. I was pleasantly mistaken. There is a lot of laughs to be had in this film, and some of that comes from Mai and her friends, who are 13-year-olds going through puberty, discovering themselves, and finding out they have crushes on boys and boy bands. A lot of the humor comes from that naturally and never feels out of place. Now, I haven't really touched on the giant panda in the room here, and that's because that is the aspect of this film that I did struggle to appreciate thoroughly throughout. And there were certainly good gags with Mai transforming into the panda, but ultimately that aspect of the movie was the part of the movie I didn't care really anything about, which is a big problem when a large part of the story is Mai being a panda and trying to transform back to a human. When I didn't find that compelling, that is a struggle that this movie has to overcome, and it never quite overcomes it for me. The gags, you knew exactly where they were going to go and what beats the story was going to hit. Thus, every time Mai as the red panda was on screen, I just kind of lost interest. The jokes do feel really aimed at young children, whether it's a panda twerking, whether it's the panda wearing funny clothes, whether it's the panda scaring people. It all just felt very childish, and that's not a problem of the film, but it does make it hard for me to appreciate those aspects. With that said, let me make it clear. There are some really funny jokes throughout this film. Younger children are going to get joy from that humor because it is going to play to their demographic very well, as is the design of the giant red panda. One thing I haven't mentioned about this film, it looks stunning. The animation is top-notch, which at this point, I'm not even going to go into detail on that because you just know Pixar and Disney is always going to deliver top animation quality. What I will say about this animation in particular, it doesn't feel Pixar or Disney. They take a lot of anime influence and it gives it its own feeling that's void of Pixar and Disney, which I quite appreciate it. I think what takes the film for me from generic entertaining to good is the third act. I found the third act so emotionally riveting, and I will not be afraid to admit it. I definitely teared up a few times throughout the third act. There is some really heavy emotional stuff that just hits to the core, and I found it impressive, and Pixar did it yet again, just being able to play off people's emotions. And it's in a way that feels honest and never feels like it's just trying to make you cry. It feels so natural for this story, and it allows for these characters' arcs to end in a very satisfactory way. Overall, Churning Red, it is a good movie, maybe not one of my favorites, and I doubt it's going to be one of my favorites at the end of the year, but for what it is, a family film with a red giant panda and a beautiful family dynamic throughout, I think it's a really entertaining watch, and it far exceeded my expectations. I am giving Churning Panda 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out the Beniverse, and make sure to be participating in Wild Wild West, a March Madness tournament all centered around who is the best Wes Anderson character. More information can be found on intotheBeniverse.com, which is also in the description below. So thank you guys for joining me today. My name is Ben. Take care.